So I wanted to make a video about Rimworld and show off my perceptions of it, as well as most of the, hopefully, features of this incredibly complex colony simulator game that has you set up your own colony on an alien world and control various things such as the power management, crops, the building, cold, heat, the different seasons, health, disease, sanity, all sorts of stuff. It is probably the most complex and in-depth colony simulator game I have ever played. And it is by far my favorite. It's it's definitely the toughest. I've currently got the debug menu open to make sure that nothing goes wrong in this playthrough, because I just wanted to show off some of the features. I have another game running, but this one I've manipulated a lot of stuff just for, I was going for visual effect, but as you can see, I messed it all up. The geysers that are placed around the maps aren't naturally occurring in this order, but if you use one of the debug actions, you can set your own geysers. Either to give yourself more steam power or to just make them look nice. You can set up all your steam power in different patterns if you want. But that is not what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus on the simple fact of designing your place in such a way as to be aesthetically pleasing to your different colonists. If they don't like how your place looks, they will eventually get upset about it. And they will let you know. Well, this one is not too upset about the environment, but one thing that she is upset about is her bonded animal that I made these people spawn in with. Hers died recently. It had a heart attack and they weren't able to save it. I tried giving it the best medicine available, but it was too old. It was an old fox, and I believe it was 15 or 16 years old. It was getting up there, which is another thing you have to watch out for in this game. If you tame pets or other animals in the world, and any animal in the world can be tamed as a pet or hunted for food, you have a chance of your colonists getting incredibly upset when they die. And that effect will last for a very long time. And that's one thing you'll always have to take into account. But you can control who tames your pets and who has access to which pet, as well as who is the master of different pets, if they can be trained. As you can see, cats cannot be trained, just like in real life. If you want to restrict what work everyone does, there is a whole tab for that, and you can go in depth and manually control what priority of each job every person does. And I don't have prisoners, so I don't have anyone warden most of the time. I don't want people to focus on handling the animals until I have a decent amount of animals that produce things like wool, leather, milk, or whatnot. There's something on the map called Muffalo, big blue buffalo-looking creatures. They produce a lot of nice resources. I like to harvest them and tame them. I used to try and have them run around in a pen, but because this game is so complex, if you trap too many of them in too small of an area and don't let them wander around outside that area, if they run out of food, they will overeat all the grass in that area. Consequently, if you let them run around your whole base, they, being wild animals, will poop and make a mess all over the place and make your place look gross and also be more unhygienic, giving you potential to have more diseases. And if your diseases spread, all of your colonists will be stuck in the hospital beds and no one will be able to work, nothing will get done, and your colony will fall apart. It will also fall apart if your people are so upset and go on a mental break and have a rampage. There are a bunch of different ways that people can lash out if they're upset enough, from starting fires to just randomly destroying stuff to yelling at each other to getting in fistfights with each other, all sorts of stuff. So you want to make sure you balance all of their needs. You want to make sure that they have food, that they're not too hot, that they're not too cold, that the environment looks nice, that there's lights, that they aren't too stressed from not having stuff to do. I try to give my people a nice little work area, and I cheated and added a nice gold floor and a big mega screen TV. My hope is that it will make them extremely happy, and for the most part they have been. There's only been one person I've had to use the happiness debug to make sure she didn't go insane, and that was shortly after I spawned her in, and she kept falling asleep in the freezer, which is another aspect of this game I really like. If you don't refrigerate and freeze your food, it will spoil a lot of the food. Some of the food won't. But that also takes a lot of power and produces a lot of heat, because the air conditioners have one side that blows cool air and one side that blows hot air. And you'll have to ventilate and pump that air around your base or out in the open and have your freezer be out in the open and exposed to the elements, and I don't like that. I like my freezer set in the center of my base and surrounded by small rooms where most of the air is hopefully pumped out so that the temperature isn't too high to where my people will burn to death. Because it can also be too hot inside of these rooms, and if it is, your people can get a heat stroke and die that way. I think that's what contributed to the old wolf dying from a heart attack. She was wandering around in an area that was 154 degrees, and I hadn't been paying attention to the fact that that room was so hot. And so she overheated and had a heart attack and had to be rescued. And for some odd reason, they brought her all the way down here instead of taking her to the nearest bed. Since animals can't be assigned beds, I don't really understand why that was. But this game's still in early access, so there might be some bugs that need to be worked out and whatnot. Another thing I like about this game is the mining aspect, and the fact that you can dig out rooms for resources. You can harvest chunks of stone and metal and other blocks, and then process those into usable materials to build walls, and then all the other stuff that you need for your base. There's also a whole tech tree of stuff that you can research. A lot of stuff that you can research. And depending on what you research, you will have access to newer and better materials. Also weapons. You will definitely, if you're not playing on a peaceful map, need to invest in weapons and defenses, because you can get attacked by factions and just general bandits and raiders that want nothing more than to destroy you. The different factions in this game, you can boost your standing with them by trading with them, and I think there are different quests that you can do for them that they will reward you with certain items as well as be happier with you. I haven't really focused on that too much in this game. I have spent most of my time trying to just build a colony that takes up the entire map that I set it on, and I also want to get enough people that I can go and raid another base, because on the world map you can go and raid other bases. You can also create whole new colonies. I think there's a limit of up to 5 different colonies that you could be running at one time if you want. here on this massive, massive world. And I think I'm only showing, yeah, I think it only set to generate 30% of the world space. But these are all areas I could go to and attack or trade with, interact with. It's pretty huge, so huge that in the 130 hours I've played this game, I just haven't even gotten to it because there's so much other stuff you can do. I really like focusing on the farming and farming a bunch of different plants, and I like taking a portion of the stone blocks that I create and just making a bunch of sculptures and either selling the sculptures or using them to make my place look magnificent. And I usually have one person set to just haul resources that everyone else is producing to the appropriate stockpiles, and I have another person who is set to clean. And depending on how big your base gets, you will have to set more people and more people to do specific tasks. You'll have to restrict it so that certain people aren't able to do certain things at all because of how it prioritizes things. It prioritizes research, cleaning, and hauling as the lowest priority. And even though for me those are kind of the highest priority, if your base is disgusting and all of your resources are out in the open being destroyed by the elements, you aren't going to do very well. Also, if you're not researching anything, you're not going to get through all the technology tiers to get to the better resources to be able to defend yourself against the enemies that are going to come later on. Another aspect on the death side that I forgot to mention is graves and sarcophaguses. You can build different graves or just dig graves to bury your animals and loved ones when they die, and it's kind of to show respect and will help mitigate the negative aspect of them dying, as well as eliminate the negative mood effect that comes from seeing the dead body every time they walk by it, and the negative effect that would come from making them eat that person, because it is possible to have them butcher the corpse and eat the pets and fallen colonists in this game. These big water spots on the map can't be removed, so they will have to be built around, and that's something you'll have to take into account on your randomly generated world maps. If you see a map that has a lot of water and you don't want to deal with that, I recommend just starting over. It's always good to zoom around and check your map. This map I picked, or I stayed with, because I like all of this mountainous region. These are going to be pretty good defenses against enemies. I plan to expand pretty heavily in this direction and have the main part of my base in here at some point. Before that, I'll obviously have to turn off the debug menu, but while I have it open, I can do stuff like spawn specific objects or stacks of objects, stuff like that. I think you can also use it to heal or kill colonists, and even spawn in new colonists if you want. Obviously, when you're playing the game without it, it won't be possible to do those things. But I like that it's there. It's really handy if you don't want to risk losing your main game and you want to quickly build a colony so that you can do something like maybe show a video giving your perceptions of this game. I apologize for not letting it run. I suppose I should, but I know that it will severely drop my FPS because I have it zoomed out so far. But if I zoom in too close, you're not going to be able to see anybody really doing anything, because I think most people are set to do one task. I have one cook, I have a hunter, I have a builder, I have a miner, I have a cleaner, and I have a hauler. And I think everyone else is just set to kind of do a mix of those things. Sorry. There is also a whole 24-hour day and night cycle in the game, and if you don't restrict your people's sleep and work hours to different times throughout the day, every single person in your colony will go to bed at the same time and nothing will be getting done during that time. I don't know if it's possible to succeed in the game with that happening, but I don't risk it. I stagger my people. I put them on different shifts, so there's always people working every hour of the day. You can also create and assign different areas and different types of drugs and outfits to people. If you want to set your own specific summer, fall, and winter outfits, you can do that. If you want to make it so that people who have an addictive tendency to drugs aren't allowed drugs, you can do that. If you want to make it so that it's mandatory for people to take drugs, obviously you can do that. You can also create and set your own areas in the game. So if you want to create a whole area just for your animals, or if you want to create a bunch of different areas and section off people's rooms so that nobody goes in that room except for the person who owns it, then you can do that. I don't mess with the areas too much except for the home area. I try to expand that as much as possible in the beginning, because if a fire starts in the open and you don't take care of it, it can definitely expand to the point where it will destroy your base. And I had a fire that was on the verge of doing that when I was just getting started setting this up. So I had to quickly expand my home area and take care of that. You can control everything, such as where you build your roofs, where you grow your crops, what types of crops you grow in that area, and how large of an area you grow it. So if you want to set up a specific area for growing trees, you can grow a specific type of tree if you want to use that for wood. There are also a ton of different types of flooring options. I like messing with the colored floors just because I like pretty colors. If you want to build a bunch of different stuff to make your people happy, there are a bunch of different options you can research for that. And pretty much everything that can be built in the game can be built out of all the different materials available in the game. Obviously for different crafting requirements for whatever material it's made out of. For security, there are a bunch of different traps that you can set up. I played on my peaceful mode for my other map because I was worried about getting messed up by raiders too quickly, and so I haven't had to worry about them at all. I don't really have to place traps, but if you want them, they are there. There's also a whole trading option in this game. If you build a comms console and an orbital trade beacon and place that orbital trade beacon in a supply area with a bunch of supplies you want to trade with, and the comms beacon pretty much anywhere that there's room for it, you can call one of the factions and try to have them send you a caravan, and then you can trade your resources with them and make money that way. If you wanted to just have a big booming economy and become a trading empire, you could play the game that way. If you want to build a big army and research all the new high-tech guns and armors and stuff like that, and wage war against everyone on the planet, you can also do that. If you want to create your own caravans and send your own trading parties out into the world, you can do that. And to help you do that, they added a caravan spot, or a caravan packing spot, where all of your colonists who are set to go out with the caravan and protect it, as well as do the trading and carry the supplies, they will bring all the supplies and all the animals or whatnot to that area, and then set everything up there and then leave from there. This is because earlier, before they did that, colonists would work themselves literally into a frenzy trying to get everything done. They wouldn't eat and they wouldn't sleep, and they would just keep trying to gather everything needed for the caravan while